Well, this time of year, it gets colder and darker in the shop awfully early. It's only about 4:30, but the sun has set on the shop. In fact, it's set on our entire little valley here where our home and our shop is. There's still some sun on the higher ridges, but that doesn't do me much good here. It's starting to get a little dimmer. It just seems like a good time to quit, so I'm going to call it a day. But as I do that, I thought I would answer a question several people have asked in the past, and that is, what do you do when you shut down the shop for the day? So I thought I would take you on a quick trip around the shop, and I'll show you some of those few little things that make a difference in both safety and cost savings in the long run. And in both cases, that generally just means making sure things are shut off so they're not going to cause a problem. Make sure your gas forge is off, both at these valves and at the wall, and I'll show you that knob that I've got over there. Or if you have a tank in your shop that you're using for a gas forge, make sure you turn it off at the tank and at the forge. Most of these gas forges that have chokes should have the chokes closed. That helps protect your burner from updraft from the hot forge, and so it doesn't corrode your burner as fast. Your burners will last a little longer if you close the chokes while it's still hot. If you haven't been using it, it doesn't matter. But if you've been using it, turn off the gas, close the chokes, your forge will be ready to go the next day. Now the coal forge, in my shop, I have a non-combustible floor, I have a nice big forge hearth. If I've been using the coal forge, I just pull the coal away from the fire pot. It goes out rather quickly and there's little risk. If you have a shop that's drafty and embers could blow out of your forge, or if it's outside where embers would really cause a problem if they blew out, or if you have to bring your forge back into the garage or the shed or something like that, you need to make sure that fire is completely out. Either quit early enough for it to go out or sprinkle some water on it. But don't put water right on your cast iron fire pot. That's a good way to crack it. So pull all the coal to the edge of the forge outside the cast iron. And if it's a big cast iron pan, maybe you need to shovel it in a bucket, sprinkle some water in a bucket, but make sure the fire's out. That is a big advantage to having a permanent setup like this, that I don't have to worry about that so much. I just pull the coal away from the fire pot. It goes out if it doesn't have a draft, no problem. Because my gas forge is plumbed from outside, I have this valve on the wall, and this is where I make sure that the forge is off. In addition to the valves on the forge, I make sure this is always off before I quit for the day. And that brings up something that another blacksmith told me once, a little saying he has, and that is, touch every valve every night. So that means whether you used your torch or not, go by the torch, make sure the valves are off. It's also a good idea to make sure the regulators, the screws are backed out of the regulators. It's better for the diaphragms to not have pressure on the diaphragms. I know not everybody does that, but at least make sure you've touched the valves, make sure they're off. Same thing for your welding gases. Make sure those valves are turned off. Now, leaky CO2 or argon isn't going to burn your shop down, but that stuff's expensive, so that's where you save some money by making sure you shut those off every day. If you're gone for the weekend and you left that valve on and it's got a slow leak, you could run through $100 worth of gas and never have done a bit of work with it, and then it's back to town to buy more gas. So make sure you turn those bottles off. Now, the odds of you walking out of the shop and leaving a power hammer or a noisy piece of machinery running are pretty slim. But it pays to double check anyways, and just take a look at them and make sure that the switches are all off. And in this one, it has a key for security. So if you're in a place where that matters, if there's a chance that the neighborhood kids or your own kids might come into the shop when you're not around, take the key with you. The Little Giant just has a switch on the side, easy to double check. Over here I have my air compressor. And the air compressor doesn't run all the time, but if it has a little slow leak, it might come on. So double check and make sure that switch is off, and this one is not. So now I've made sure my air compressor is not going to come on overnight. Just a waste of electricity, probably doesn't hurt anything, but there's no reason to make it run. And for that matter, you should drain your air compressor every single night or have an automatic drain on it to get the moisture out of it. Now, I'd never thought of it before, and I've never heard this before, but somebody had told me that they'd heard of a fire started by rechargeable batteries being left on the charger when the shop was unattended. So it's probably a good idea to take those batteries out of the charger if you're going to be gone. Like I say, that's the only time I've ever heard of a fire being caused by a battery charger, but why take a chance? Sometimes in the winter I use this little portable propane heater. Same thing applies. Check it before you leave. Make sure the valve's shut off, even if you didn't use it today. And close the damper on the wood stove to make sure your fire goes out. Of course, I didn't run a fire today, but nevertheless. So that's really the big thing. Make sure if it will start a fire, that it's put out and turned off. If it's something that you might leak and waste or consume electricity or something like that while you're not in the shop, make sure it's turned off. If you've been cutting off materials and you had something slide under a workbench because you lost control of your cutoff, make sure you found that. Make sure there wasn't some trash under the workbench for it to start a fire while you're not there overnight. If you've been using oil-based finishes, make sure you put the oily rags in a rag can where they're safe. It really comes down to just plain old common sense. When you leave the shop, make sure you turn all the lights off unless you have some sort of security lights. If you have a security system, set the alarm. Luckily, I live somewhere where that's not too big a deal. We rely mostly on the nosy neighbors because they'll tell us if anybody's been here when we were gone. Of course, if you have a shop with doors that lock, make sure you lock the doors. And in our area, one more little safety precaution pays off, and that is make sure there is no food-related trash left in the shop. If you had a snack in the shop, take that trash with you. And that's mostly because we have bears, skunks, raccoons, chipmunks, mice, who knows what else, that would love to get in the shop and sniff around for whatever I might have left if I was having a snack in the shop. So it's better not to have food in the shop, although I do have coffee in the shop, and so far they don't seem interested. But if you do have food, maybe get the food trash out of there so you don't attract critters. Well, really, that's about it. I'm going to gather up the rest of my things, make sure I've got the cameras packed up, take my notes, take any finished projects that I need to ship back into the house with me, turn off the lights, close the doors, and we'll see you tomorrow for the next video. Actually, we probably won't see you tomorrow because, like I say, today it was above 50. Tomorrow it's going to be down in the 20s. So tomorrow's a good day to stay inside, edit videos, and do some computer work. Anyways, I hope that answered your question if you were one of those that had wondered how I shut down the shop for the night. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Love it if you hit that subscribe button. Hopefully you managed to make time in your day to get out to your shop and make something. And hopefully you did it safely. You wore your safety glasses. But in any case, we'll see you later.